In our nation's capital, and we'll begin with breaking news this half hour. Another major update on the conflict in the Middle East. President Trump just a short time ago saying that Israel and Iran have agreed to a, quote, complete and total ceasefire set to begin in about 6 hours. This coming on the heels of days of escalating tensions in the region. Earlier today, Iran attacking a U.S. base in Qatar in response to strikes on 3 key Iranian nuclear sites ordered by President Trump over the weekend. 2 U.S. officials confirming that missiles were launched at the Al Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. military base in the region. And this video shows the moment that Iran claims it launched the missiles that could be seen flying over Doha. There were no reported casualties in Tehran's retaliatory attack. And that, of course, came after those B-2 stealth bombers dropped a number of those 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs during Saturday's operation against Tehran, following days of heavy fighting between Iran and Israel. And so for more on all of this, I want to bring in ABC News' Christian Cordero, ABC News State Department reporter Shannon Kingston, and ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez, and former Assistant Director of the CIA, Matthew Barrett. Thank you all for sticking with us here. But Christian, I want to start with you. What else is the president saying about this ceasefire?
So he's laid out the framework here, Alex, and essentially saying that it's scheduled to start in the next 6 hours or so. We should note really off the top that we have reached out to the other parties involved in this, Iran and Israel, and haven't received an official comment yet. But according to the president, the agreement involves 2 12-hour ceasefire periods, Iran initiating the first 12 hours, Israel following with the second 12 hours. And that, in the president's words, should wrap this conflict that has lasted for the past 12 days. We have learned, though, that there are reports of strikes that are hitting across the country, Israel hitting Iran right now, a short while before President Trump's post, which you see right there. The IDF issued evacuation orders for multiple districts in Tehran. So they're kind of threading the needle here of, the conflict and trying to end it as it is continuing to go on. But as I mentioned, the president saying that this is set to kick in about 6 hours or so. It'll be very telling the next 6 hours.
No, certainly. Well, and Shannon, as Christian pointed out, we have not yet heard from Iran or Israel about this ceasefire announced by the president. But is there any reaction from the State Department at this hour?
Well, Alex, some of the officials I've been talking to are saying that this is exactly what they predicted would happen over the weekend when we saw lawmakers, critics of the president, saying that this was going to spiral out of control, become another Iraq war-style scenario. They predicted that the military action would actually lead to a path for a diplomatic resolution here, because remember, it's not just the 12 days of war we're talking about. We're also looking at these high-stakes, high-level negotiations between the U.S. and Iran that have been going on about Iran's nuclear program, and basically everybody across the administration agrees that no matter what, you can't bomb away that problem. There is going to have to be some settlement at the end here. But as Christian pointed out, these next 6 hours and really the 24 hours that come after that are going to be very telling. The Middle East theater is very difficult, to say the least. There are a lot of complicated, long-standing conflicts here. So diplomats' work, it's not over yet.
Well, and Louis, as Shannon pointed out, it's a very difficult region. So I would anticipate that the U.S. would retain its defensive military posture in the region, even given the news of the ceasefire. Is that something that you'd expect as well?
No, that is definitely something that I expect, Alex, because the concern here is that what if the ceasefire doesn't hold? What again if the United States gets involved in some kind of a retaliation from the Iranians, as we saw today? But for now, I think we had to take what the president said earlier today when he tried to diffuse tensions, to de-escalate the situation with Iran. Now, let's go back. Let's discuss what happened earlier today. We saw Iran launching 14 missiles towards Qatar at the large U.S. air base known as Al Udeid, and 13 of those missiles were intercepted by the United States and Qatari air defense systems. And we were wondering, well, is there going to be another round of attacks on the part of the United States in retaliation for this? Then we heard de-escalatory language from the president in one of his social media posts. Since then, we have now information from 2 U.S. officials that while reserving the right to retaliate, The president, there are no active plans right now for the U.S. military to retaliate for this Iranian attack that occurred on Al-Udeid earlier today. Now, where we go from here, I think the U.S. military officials that I've spoken to about the ceasefire, they're watching this in themselves in real time. I'm not sure how well informed they were that this was going to be announced by the president. But in either case, the United States is going to maintain its defensive posture in the region just in case, because even though this is just happening now, the truth is going to be the reality when the truth is in the pudding, right, as they like to say, because we're going to have to really see whether both sides carry out with this 12-hour, 24-hour plan that's just been laid out by the president.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and as this news is trickling out, we're actually hearing from Vice President J.D. Vance. I've got a soundbite that I'd like to play. Take a listen.
What it means, Brett, is quite simple. First of all, the president, without, knock on wood, having a single American casualty, obliterated the Iranian nuclear program. We are now in a place where we weren't a week ago. A week ago, Iran was very close to having a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment they have because we destroyed it.
Well, and so you just heard the vice president there. Matthew, I want to swing this to you. I mean, what do you make of his remarks?
I think we're all still waiting for definitive assessments of the bomb damage. It sounds pretty bad considering the type and the number of ordnance we laid down on a very key nuclear site. I think his words are technically accurate. If we've destroyed we destroyed most of their centrifuges and done some damage there. As we speak, we have certainly put a stop on their ability to create a nuclear weapon. What we have not ended, obviously, is their ability to rebuild centrifuges. And if they haven't already hidden their enriched uranium in other sites, they certainly have the capability to enrich some more. So I guess the good news is we probably have a big delay should the Iranians choose to pursue nuclear weapons. It is not exactly game over. They have the expertise to return to that pursuit.
Well, and Christian, kind of piggybacking off of Matthew's statement there, what we heard from Vice President Vance is certainly more definitive than what we heard from him over the weekend in that interview with John Carl. Here, he's pretty definitively saying that he believes that we obliterated their nuclear capabilities. We've certainly heard from international agencies that there would need to be some on-the-ground eyes to kind of assess the damage that had been done after those 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs were dropped by those B-2 stealth planes. But what are you kind of gleaning from the Vice President's latest remarks here?
It certainly is consistent, Alex, with what the president's message overall here is, with his words, with his actions, and even just in the rhetoric alone, right? That there's been this back and forth for several days, and then that we made the decisive decision, the administration made the decisive decision to obliterate, in their words, to attack the nuclear capabilities in Iran. And so the administration is really trying to put a stamp on it and to end it, so to speak, to prevent potentially further escalation, because that was one of the really pressing questions. But in the periphery, there are still many questions, right? We have touched on the enriched uranium and where that is as far as their strategy goes and the capabilities for that to potentially come back. But then also the regime changed, right? There's been a lot of language around whether the U.S. is interested in pushing the Supreme Ayatollah out. It certainly seems like the rhetoric as of late has been more to the sense of that it should be an internal uprising from the people of Iran. But does this have, is this truly the final say that the administration is presenting it as? That is still to be determined.
Well, and Matthew, we're seeing reports from our foreign team here that, and Christian brought this up actually earlier, Israel appears to be hitting Iran pretty hard right now. The IDF has issued evacuation orders for multiple districts in Tehran. And there are reports, unconfirmed reports of strikes hitting other areas of the country as well. Does any of this potentially put in, I should note that was before the president's ceasefire deal announcement. But I'm curious, does any of this potentially put this ceasefire deal in jeopardy?
It certainly does. The President Trump has offered a gesture. He has announced, apparently, that we will not make a retaliatory strike to the Iranian attack in Qatar. No such news yet coming out of Israel. So I think everyone's going to be watching for a gesture on Jerusalem's part. And again, we'll see. Jerusalem is not exactly in a military stretch of constraint, from Gaza to what it's been doing in Iran in the last couple of weeks. So maybe Netanyahu will sort of say, hey, now's the time to hit the brakes. The region will be hoping that. The Iranians will be hoping that. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back to Louis Martinez. And look, we've talked about how the U.S. will likely continue its ramped up positioning in the area, the military. But are there any known movements that we're aware of as of now, as the U.S. potentially bracing for any subsequent Iranian attacks after this attack on the air base in Qatar, or is it kind of all quiet right now?
No, Alex, the U.S. personnel in the region remain on high alert. They were on high alert prior to the airstrike being carried out in Iran this weekend, and they have remained even higher state of alert given the after effects, the concern about a retaliation attack, which we saw earlier today. I think you're going to see U.S. forces in the region maintaining that posture, and we've been talking about how the defensive posture that the United States has had in the region was all to deter, to protect U.S. military facilities and personnel, and we saw the surging of additional resources. We saw the surging of dozens of mid-air refueling tankers into Europe, where they could potentially assist fighters that were also surged into the Mideast. We also know that a second aircraft carrier has arrived in the Middle East and is now operating in the southern Arabian Sea off the coast of Yemen, along with the USS Carl Vinson. So now that you have the Nimitz on board, you have 2 aircraft carriers now operating in the Middle East region. And tomorrow we are covering the departure of the USS, I'm blanking on the name right now, apologies, the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is going to be departing for the Eastern European theater. And once it's there, Alex, it's going to be operating in the Mediterranean Sea. And that means that you're going to have 3 aircraft carriers operating in the Middle East region and the Eastern Med. And not only is it the aircraft carrier that's going to the Med, Alex, you also have additional destroyers that are capable of shooting down missiles. Those missiles that have been shot down, the United States is providing assistance in terms of ballistic missile defense off the coast of Israel, assisting Israel in the shoot down of some of those Iranian ballistic missiles being fired at it. Now you're going to have even more of those destroyers with that capability. So yes, the defensive posture of the United States in the region is being enhanced, and this was done now weeks ago. So lots of planning underway, but I think that high alert status is going to remain. And even though right now we are in this talk of a ceasefire, by all means, I don't think that the tensions in the region are being abated right now.
Well, and I want to go back to State Department reporter Shannon. And listen, just a few days ago, we saw Secretary of State Marco Rubio meeting with his UK counterpart, David Lammy, about tensions between Iran and Israel. Have we heard anything from the Secretary of State thus far?
Well, Secretary Rubio, we do know that he has been at the White House all afternoon, working really in lockstep with the president. His role has been informing European allies who have really taken a back seat here. But Rubio has been, according to sources, a key part of the decision-making. We know he was in the Situation Room over the weekend, and he's also going to accompany the president to the NATO summit taking place in the Netherlands over the next couple of days. So that is going to be a chance for the U.S., for European allies, and potentially some of these key players from the Middle East to gather together to hash out the next steps, what they want to see happen next as this conflict, they say, is heading toward a resolution. So I think these are going to be a very consequential 48 hours ahead for the Secretary of State and really the trajectory of the Middle East.
Certainly. All right, Shannon, Christian, Louis, and Matthew, thank you all.